Ah, a new set with so many wonders to look at and such a rich world. We have seen a glimpse of what the Kami and Myojin of Kamigawa mean to the two worlds, but let us see some more practical sides of them together, and starting with some more samurai lore. Let's dive into this set booster to learn more about Neon Kamigawa. We start off with an art card. Like always with set boosters, this time we see the art of Isshin, two heavens as one. And although he is one of the most interesting modern day samurai, we shall look at the art from Ryan Pancoast. We see a strong samurai that seems nimble from his pose. His sword is held so far back that you can only imagine seeing the man swirling in like a blade. Samurai fight alone. It is the only honored way to fight. This is why we see darkness around Isshin, and only the light of his own augmented swords shines on the ground under Isshin. A good opening to this pack, as we will soon learn. From the Master of Lands, Adam Paquette, we see the city of Otawara. This is the city of the Soratami or moonfolk that is high up in the sky. The waterfalls of the city used to drop freely onto the humans that attended Minamo Academy, who in their turn plainly built fountains to catch that water. It seems like the moonfolk have become more sympathetic with the humans and have found a way to let the water flow wherever they want. Also note that even though all of Kamigawa has become semi-mechanized, the Soratami have chosen to keep their clean look for their flying city. Trust me, nothing is not on purpose with Adam Paquette. We continue with the imperial city of Eiganyo, where order seems to be of first priority. The empire has had a history of being attacked from all sides and always strives to be the most firm stronghold of Kamigawa. This is why it is fitting to have this card about the place be a subduer. We learned today that samurai can be on the side of bandits or on the imperial side, and that the imperial ones still like to attack alone. In their attack, they will subdue any enemy they face. In the art from Yunomachi, we see how this warrior would do so. They subdue with their lettered paper, just like the old kanji mages would do. Kanji mages used to write words on objects to give them traits, like weak or poisoned. I think it is awesome to see the held-back Imperials choose a fighting style that uses the old ways of subjugation. We learn more from just the name. Who would have thought that the Orochi of all people would change the most? The snake people have lost their legs and are now coiling even more stealthily. When I said that they had changed, I mostly meant that the Orochi are now even better at what they already did. This stalker enters and then strengthens himself or his friends. So that is a huge change for the bloodthirsty Orochi cultists. The art from Matsumoto really makes us think about how scary it would be to see blades and claws coming at you. Fangs behind that, and to boot, or well, they can wear boots, but still at the end comes a long coiling tail that could just as well kill you in mere minutes. You don't have long when this snake is already so close. This is a big egg with a sword in it that shoots out electrical shocks. It is stacked on a bed of runic stones to maybe control the power from this artifact. Its effects are that when it enters the battlefield, you manifest something random out of the egg. You can then crack the egg to get your sword back, together with a warrior that was also in the egg. And then another thing poops out of the egg with that warrior. I can only imagine this being someone's science experiment and then having the scientists be shocked by all of the stuff that comes out of an electrical egg with a sword in it. I also think it's thematic to give the samurai that hatches from this egg vigilance. I would be scared for life too. Aki Ronin is another example of prime evolution. You can see in the flavor that an Aki smith preaches to carry the heat of the furnace in your steel and never let it fade. We learn from this that the Aki like to be rambunctious with their fighting. Once their weapon is forged, they will not let it cool down before hacking you down. In the art from Olivier Bernard, we see such a goblin looking back at us. This is not a good place to be. The humans of Kamigawa see the Aki as highly territorial, although you can say that these goblins just like to do what they want in that moment, which is to use their newly crafted weapons. You can see that they have also evolved to use flying machines that drop lava. You can see why the Aki have evolved larger and larger shells on their back. The goblins of Kamigawa have evolved to have larger and larger shells to protect them from their own hubris. As we have seen, samurai are lonely people. They like to attack alone, but they also expect their opponent to do the same for their own honor. Because of all of these rules, they massively respect opponents that follow another set of strict rules. The red-aligned samurai from Kamigawa focus on a different value than the ones from Eiganjo. They focus on these strict rules because it gives them what they want. It gives them strong opponents to fight, much like the duality of the Boros Legion of Ravnica. The strongest samurai must lead a very boring life, only getting action sometimes, and then only finding a worthy opponent once or maybe twice in their life before they die. This warrior experience is the same and gives you a discount on your next worthy ally when he sees an epic battle in their eyes, of course. In my eyes, this art is the most epic battle. Mika Epstein made another masterpiece of a fiery blade, snowy ground and the smoke of a hot scorched body hitting the snow being black in order to show us the weight of this moment for our now peerless samurai. We continue with another samurai that has chosen the bandit path. I immediately think about how it is logical for samurai to choose two sides. They want to fight like-minded people in one-on-one duels. So, they need to work on different sides in order to fight these dangerous duels. Not all samurai operate under a flag though. This Uprising Renegade's flavor betrays this. It says, "My streets, my rules. You picked the wrong neighborhood for a fight." Note that this samurai does not have a ruling for just having one creature fight at the same time. This is a 1-3 that becomes stronger when he holds his big beat stick. Then he does not mind how many people throw themselves into this fight. Now, what we should really notice is that this creature is literally Wooden Sword Ryu from Shaman King. You're welcome. One last banditry card before we learn more of the Kami and Myojin. Flame Discharge shows us that red is still red, and that they still like big flamey spells. No worries guys, Flame Discharge deals as much damage as you have mana, and even more when you board as a creature that has been modified, showing that this Pyromancer could work with their own magic, but having a big robot arm to do it for her is cooler for a red mage. From simple to freakishly complicated, we get to the story of beholding the unspeakable. This is a Kami that we cannot speak about. It is also the story of the wizard that lets all your wizard creatures draw you cards whenever you tap them. Azami Ozu. Azami was a curious girl that sat by the river one day until a Kami approached her and asked her what she wished for. Azami chose knowledge and stupidly told the Kami that she would give up everything for it. Azami talked with the spirit and learned a lot from it. Throughout Azami's life, she had friends around her fall ill, or even her mother fall into a river and one friend drowned in quicksand. In every instance, Azami could have saved them, but chose to ignore their pleas for help, so that she could gain knowledge or scrolls. This constant search for knowledge got her a position in the most important university of Kamigawa, Minamo. We see this part of the story by creatures losing their power around Azami, and the Kami and then Azami and their students learning more according to how much of their previous life they had given away. But why do we only see a shadow of this Kami? Well, the shadow we see is probably Azami's own shadow. You see, when Azami was working at Minamo, her students found the Kami that she got her knowledge from, and discovered that this Kami was just a lesser spirit. This meant that Azami had let her friends die, not the Kami. The flavor, therefore, is weird. Even as her students' minds succumbed to madness, Azami's obsession with the Kami of the forbidden knowledge only grew. Well, we do know that Kami that are given attention grow in power. So it might be that this flying trample spirit that grows with every card in hand does as well, and that in turn might mean that the lesser Kami might now be a true unspeakable Kami of forbidden knowledge. Well, I doubt that, because the nature of Kami do not really change that drastically. So this is either a new Kami, or it is another ruse from Azami in order to keep her power. And that is why no one is allowed to speak of this Kami. It's late now. I read on, not satisfied without an answer, and found a story from 2004 that had two students talk about an unspeakable Kami. Two students had stolen scrolls from Azami had then disappeared a week later. When people wanted to investigate, Azami told them not to, because this Kami did not want to be seen. New students then heard of this story because that's how myths spread, and then went to do research, while Azami tried to stop them. When they stumbled onto a book about Orochi graves, one of the students knew something was wrong, because the Orochi don't use graves. When the student kept reading that evening, a Kami would form before him without him noticing. This was the Kami of the unspeakable, which meant the Kami of the words that should never be whispered. In other words, whenever a student stole another book from Azami, this Kami would manifest and feed on the tension between the student's curiosity and the words that should not be read. And like every student that saw the unspeakable, the new students succumbed to a deafening madness. I told you the wrong story first, because I wanted you to know why Azami never saves these poor people, even though she could do so with a simple spell. It is because she wants to learn more about even the unspeakable. Okay, that was a story, but get this. Here we see the Myojin of Night's Reach hovering over a ninja with a sigh. Now, this is a very long story as it encompasses all of the books, but note that this is Toshiro Umezawa, the kind of main character of a large portion of Kamigawa's stories. The first two chapters have your opponent sacrifice creatures. This is because in the first stages, Toshiro used the powers of a literal Myojin. Again, all Kami stem from these at least 5 Myojin. Toshiro used these powers to kill his opponents, which he needed to do because 1. Everyone hated him, and 2. He was a reckoner, which, as I have explained before, meant he had to avenge all of the other reckoners, resulting in him spiraling into a deeper and deeper hole of problems until rage itself came to attack him. When we see Shadow Incarnate itself, or the Night's Reach, controlling a puppet, This looks amazingly scary. We do get to see that these instruments were necessary in order to stop the Kami War. We saw before that a primordial being who controlled even the Myojin was one side of this war. Now you can see how powerful this shadow Myojin should be. The power of their puppet is to grow in strength with every creature that has been defeated on the other player's side, as if their light has faded. Pre-release, it was teased that Kamigawa had gotten 5 legendary speakers of culture. These creatures ended up not being actually legendary, and we do not know for certain who these speakers are, except for one. I assume that the green version is this Weaver of Harmony. They play an instrument and we can see the trees flowing out of it in the shape of Kami energy. This snake is an Orochi that has shed his aggressive skin and has become a worker for the harmony of the forest. What a change the Orochi have made. Importantly, all enchantment creatures in this set are linked with a Kami in some way. This one must be linked with one that has acorns floating around it and must resemble something like a tree. I love the fact that this snake uses an instrument that has the shape of an acorn too, and that we see literal acorn trees in the background, in the shapes of acorns, not of a tree. The card itself is cool too. It grows your other creatures that are in harmony with their own Kami, and also enables those creatures with their Kami enchantments to do double their abilities. I love the flavor that this snake helps anyone that has found their balance, and friendship in the form of a Kami helper. Lovely palette cleanser. And we needed a cleanser, because here is a ninja with a sweeping hook for a weapon instead of a cute instrument, and their hand is a mouth that eats brains. Yeah. This ninja is a 3/3 that you can play or ninjutsu in for 3 mana. They enter with a menace counter, making them harder to block on their own on turn 4 or so. Then they have this ability where instead of staying with their Kami, they sacrifice their menace counter when they have hit their mark in order to reveal opponent's hand and eat their brain by exiling a card from it. That is some cruel ninjutsu he has there. Now, previously we saw a Kami token of an enraged lesser Kami. This time we see a spirit token of one that has helped rebuild Kamigawa. These tokens belong to cards that create friendly Kami or that bestow helpers upon houses and families, or that are stored in lanterns in order to keep the streets of Kamigawa, and then probably mostly Eiganyo, as safe as possible. You can see how important it is to be friends with spirits on a ninja-ridden world, where light is a weapon.